Danny Draven in the Fish Bowl. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me.
Thanks for having me, man. Good to be swimming around.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope the temperature is just right.
Yeah.
Well, first, I just want to say that like I'm a huge fan of your work.
Thank you.
I love Full Moon, and I've been following everything you've been doing with Meet the Weedjies and everything you've done in the past. And I just want to say that I'm really, really stoked for this movie to come out.
Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you followed the live stream thing. It was definitely a very different movie making experience. I think for me particularly, but I think for fans and people who are interested in being filmmakers, it was definitely something very different to see. But yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I mean, granted, I didn't watch like all the videos through and through, but I followed a lot of the stuff that was going on. And the movie looks awesome. I saw the trailer you put together, and I'm just really, really excited to check it out.
Yeah, well, it's 100. I mean, it was literally like probably over 100 hours of material to even watch anyway. So, I mean, I think people would kind of log in, and see what was going on. And there was 2 cameras going at one time and that sort of thing. But no, I'm really excited about this movie. It's something different than you've seen from Full Moon in a long time. It's basically I set out to kind of make a Ghoulies movie, so that's kind of what it is. For me, it's like Ghoulies go to Vegas, kind of thing. So it's something different, I think, than you've seen them do in a long time. I mean, the Weedjies themselves are very much Ghoulie-like. I mean, the way they were built and the way they operate and the way they operate in the post-production process too, with some little enhancements here and there. It's a lot of fun. These are the kind of movies that I like to make anyway. So I'm really looking forward to it getting done. It's actually cut right now. It's just I'm still in the post-production phase at this point, still working on some pickup shots and whatnot, but it is actually cut together and it'll come out at Halloween. So
awesome. I'm very excited to check that out. Now, Tom Devlin did the effects for it, right?
Yeah, Tom Devlin and his 1313 effects team. They created the creatures. Built all the creatures, and they have animatronic eyeballs and the way that they're puppeted and the way that they're slimed up and the way that they're painted. And there's a whole process with just getting these guys ready to be able to shoot. And Tom is also a huge fan of sort of the rubber monsters like I am. So it was a perfect combination when him and I worked together on this movie with creating these guys on set and shooting them and stuff. So it was, yeah, he's great to work with too. We have the same interests. We're both fans of Ghoulies, both fans of sort of like the rubber monsters, so it was fun to be able to team up with him to do this.
That's awesome. Like me personally, like my favorite type of horror movie or like creature movie is like the monster movie. I always love seeing like either, like a man kind of behind the mask, like in makeup, or actual like animatronics creating like something that, may not be based in reality real, but on screen with an actor doing a voiceover can create the illusion that, that this creature has come to life. And yeah. I always thought like that was so cool. And I kind of got upset that, Hollywood is, kind of strayed away from that and going, the CG route, especially with like werewolf movies and stuff like that. Because I think that the monster is like one of the most important things that can be brought to the screen in a horror movie. And yeah, there's, very different types of horror movies, but I like to see a resurgence of the monster movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I think most of us do. Hollywood has gone into the dumpster as far as I'm concerned with all this CGI, madness. CGI is great, but for it's great to enhance things. Certainly we use it, to enhance things, but it should be very invisible when you do use it. Now I'm not to mention, we have, you get things that glow and here and there, whatever, that's fine. But as far as like, I'm speaking more in terms of like creatures themselves. When they become 100% CGI, it ruins it for me. I personally like rubber monsters. I like, real practical effects, just kind of like what we did on this one, and with Critters and Gremlins and all those, all my favorite sort of 80s films, and that's what they did. And I think that there should be a resurgence of it, and certainly I'm up for it. Tom's up for it. I think the fans are up for it. So, and they operate the same way. It's really nice. I mean, that they're in the scene, when the actors are interacting with them, and, they actually have a physical, we have a stunt puppet, or we have a, the more of the, like the A puppet, which is more of the animatronic. He has his eyes move and everything. So you feel like they're really there when you're doing it, as opposed to just shooting, on green screens or with just blank frames and just imagining they're there. So, no, I'm a huge fan of this stuff, and I think we're going to do a lot more of it.
Awesome. I can't wait to check out what else is on the way. I actually, one of my questions, and this is a good segue, is what actually got you interested in film?
Well, I've been a huge fan of films for forever. I mean, since I can remember. But as far as getting into filmmaking, I think that happened really early on with shooting little movies and Super 8 movies here and there, and the sort of it's not the best story, but it's just childhood shooting movies, creating stories, and that sort of, I think, developed into an interest into filmmaking. And I don't know, it just kind of went from there. I mean, horror movies, though, in particular, has never really been. I'm a fan of horror movies. It's particularly the early stuff from the 70s and the 80s, and definitely the classics. But as far as my main interest in filmmaking has really never been quite horror, which is, I know it seems odd because of all the horror movies I've been involved in, but it's actually more into the direction of horror comedy and westerns and more in that direction. But I've done plenty of horror movies, that's for sure, from slashers to paranormal adventures to, gosh, I don't even remember half of them, gore splatter movies, from the get-go. But no, it's been a fun ride. So I'd say, as far as what got me into filmmaking, it's just a love of movies, really, and wanting to create them.
Awesome. How did working at Full Moon come about?
Oh man, that's when I was in Hollywood, the way that I ended up getting into Full Moon was actually I was a web designer for them very, very early on, but I didn't go in with being a web designer in mind, I'm going to make a career out of being a web designer for Full Moon. My way to, usually there's a dues paying process in Hollywood, and you have to kind of work as a PA and get involved into production and kind of work your way up to doing bigger jobs, whether it's assistant director or production designing or whatever it is, all the way up until maybe eventually you direct a movie. And Full Moon at the time, Roger Corman at the time, Troma, all these sort of, places that were making a lot of films on lower budgets. I wanted to get involved with one of the companies, and my skill set at the time, besides filmmaking, was web design. And Full Moon needed a web designer at the time, so I ended up getting into the company not through production but through web design. And I was doing a lot of their early Full Moon websites and data, I mean, just a lot of boring stuff that you don't even want to hear about, but basically a lot of web design early on. That I ended up being introduced into, a lot of the people at Full Moon that were actually the filmmakers back then. And, to make I hate to use the phrase, make a long story short, but, the rest is kind of history. I got involved in with a group of people that were making movies at Full Moon, and, did the various amounts of jobs, from helping out to being a cinematographer on a few movies to directing, so, and it kind of just went from there. So, but I always kind of wanted to do, I've known about Charlie Band and his Full Moon from an early age. I was a fan of their films back in the day, with Mordred and Subspecies, Puppet Master, et cetera, back in the early 90s. And when I saw that they, it was a company that's like, hey, yeah, this is the kind of company I could make some movies for that would be fun and very un-Hollywoodish, and been doing it ever since. And it kind of formed a relationship with Charlie Band. We've been very good friends for, maybe well over 15 years or so now. and making movies together ever since.
That's awesome. You know, like one of my favorite things to do when I was younger was like my dad pretty much like got me into everything that I'm into today. I mean, like the guy let me watch Total Recall when I was 5 years old, and it's like been uphill ever since. And one of the things that he got me into was the Lovecraft movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that in turn like got me interested in Charlie Band and everything that company like has put out. So
sure,
you know, I'm like a huge fan of everything Jeffrey Combs and, you know, Charles Band put out, Stuart Gordon, Brian Hughes, and just the whole like Reanimator team. I really, really like the Full Moon style because it reminds me of like B-grade movies at their best, you know, and some are better than others, but you definitely know what you're getting into with a Full Moon movie, just like you know what you're getting into with a trauma movie. You know, I really, really dig that stuff a lot.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and that's the way it should be. I mean, they have their own audience and their own sort of niche and you know, for what people are expecting to watch. I mean, you're not going to sit down at Halloween and you sit down at Halloween, you're flipping through Amazon Prime, you're looking for something to watch. You can watch Halloween, you can watch, you know, some Avengers 90, whatever the hell they're on by now, or whatever Marvel movie they're on by now, or you come across a little crazy movie called Weedjies, Halloweed Night. You know what you're going to get when you click on that. You know what I mean? You're going to get something that you probably are not going to get anywhere else on there, and that's kind of the fun with all these Full Moon movies. I mean, you know, crazy they got tons of crazy titles, from the Evil Bongs to the Ginger Dead Mans to Killjoys. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting into with these. The same with Trauma, and same with even with the you know, the Roger Corman stuff. You know, so no, it's been a great ride, and yeah, I'm the same way. I'm a huge fan of Lovecraft, and I was lucky enough to be very, very good friends with Stuart Gordon and made a movie together with him and learned a lot. He was a mentor. I learned a lot about directing from him. You know, all these guys, you know, early on, I was lucky enough to get to learn a lot from them. So very cool.
Awesome. I actually wanted to talk about some of your what went into some of the consulting producing on Puppet Master and Killjoy and Ginger Dead Man.
Well, I mean, everything's a case by case basis of all that stuff. But I mean, I would say that with Full Moon, a lot. You know, I mean, I have edited as an editor. I've edited a bajillion movies, like well over 200 movies, for not just for Full Moon though, for Sci-Fi Channel and tons of other, you know, pictures, but particularly for Full Moon, you know, I've edited a lot for Charlie. I mean, I would say, you know, I don't know, pretty much every movie he's made, he's directed since for the last 15 plus years. I mean, with few exceptions, I've pretty much edited most of them. So, you know, Ginger Dead Man, I honestly, I don't remember some of the titles and which one. There's so many, I actually really don't remember which ones I edited and which ones Killjoy. I know one of the Killjoy ones, I'm sure I did. I don't remember which one, but definitely the Ginger Dead Man one. I remember doing that one with the Gary Busey and all that back in the day, and so on and so forth. So I've been very, very involved in the editing and the post-production front on pretty much their entire catalog for the last 15 plus 20 years or however long it's been now. And certainly in Charlie's films, the ones he directs, we work very, very well together as a producer-director team, as a director-producer team, as a editor-director team. So, you know, like when I cut movies he's directed, there's very, very little notes because I know we're very in sync. I really, really know what he wants. So he's one of the few directors I'll edit for. So.
Very cool. I was actually wondering, like, are some of your favorite Full Moon films, and what are the ones that you're most proud of that you've worked on?
I've directed. Honestly, Weedjies is my favorite one of all of them by far. So I would have to say, you know, it's just out of all of the films I've produced and directed for Full Moon over the years, Weedjies is definitely my favorite one. And I can say that even though it hasn't come out yet, we're not done with it yet. But I just know it because it's just like, I mean, I'm super happy with the cast. I love my cast. There's not, you know, in love with the creatures that Tom did. I'm in love with the just kind of everything, the location we had, just everything we did on the movie. I'm just really, really happy with it. So I'm say that would be my favorite one. Real Evil was a fun one to do for Full Moon. That was another kind of a favorite. I mean, it was kind of a made to order movie, really, because I mean, it was more of a back when we did that one, it was kind of a movie that Redbox kind of wanted at the time. It was kind of like the sort of paranormal investigation stuff was kind of hot at the time. So it was kind of one of those movies that was sort of like, hey, let's go make this sort of like found footage movies were really hot at the time when we made that. So we ended up going out and just sort of making this found footage movie, and it's not real. Honestly, it's really not the kind of movie I would have normally made, but at the time it was kind of a hot thing to do. So we made it, and I had a lot of fun making it. It was a really, really real life haunted location in LA, and I had a lot of fun doing that one. The other stuff, is just, gosh, there's so many, but, the one I did with Stuart was Deathbed was ages ago now, but that was fun to get to work with him on that one. Him as executive producer and sort of like kind of like the Godfather really on that one. All the other ones are just kind of like gore fests and urban horror and, whatever from there, but definitely Weedjies is my favorite.
Awesome. Well, I am, again, just like really, really stoked to see that film when it comes out. I had a question that was basically, I was wondering what people can expect with the film.
Well, what you can expect with the film is you can expect it not to be a Full Moon film like you've seen in a long time, because it's more of a throwback movie. So what you shouldn't expect is an Evil Bong movie, because that is not what you're going to get at all. It is absolutely nothing like Evil Bong or any of that stuff. It has nothing to do with it. It's not in the same zone as those movies are. And what I mean by that is there's with the Evil Bong movies, you get a certain amount of like sleaze and a certain amount of like, crazy wild, it's just a different kinds of characters, different universe. So you should not expect that with Weedjies. In fact, Weedjies is very little weed in it at all. It's called Weedjies, but there's very little in it. It's just a different vibe, man. It's just, I would say you're going to get more of the 80s throwback, like fun vibe. I don't want to use a movie as an example from that period, but I would just say, you're going to get a little bit more with the story and just the creatures and just sort of more. You'll get comedy. It is a horror comedy, and you get pretty cool Weedjies coming out of a Ouija board. Now the Ouija board's fun. It's because it operates a little bit like a Hellraiser box. So when you see it operationally, it actually, like the pieces will kind of pop up and turn around and go back down, and so it has a little bit of a mechanical mechanism to it as well. So that's something a little different, I think, that you haven't seen on a Full Moon board. There's a lot of comedy in it, a lot of just fun, really. You shouldn't expect a gory, sleazy movie with a bunch of weed in it, I guess is what I'm saying. You should expect something. I mean, this is a movie, honestly, you could show. I would give it like a PG-13 rating. Honestly, you would get more of like that sort of Gremlins-ish type rating, where you're not getting a lot of blood and guts and sleaze. You're getting a little bit more with just sort of story and fun and ghoulies and comedy.
Very cool.
It's like I mean, that's the best way I can really describe. There's some crazy scenes in it. We got Motor Breath playing. He's nuts, and he's kind of our metal ghoulie, and I call them ghoulies, even though I know they're Ouijies, but I call them I've been calling them ghoulies so long, I just keep calling them ghoulies for some reason. But they're like what Tom and I always say is they're kind of like the Care Bear, I guess, the Care Bear cousins or whatever they are to the, I forget how he phrases it really well when he says it, but it's basically kind of like a cousin of the ghoulie. So is what the Weedjies are, because they're certainly inspired by them. But we have Motor Breath, our metal ghoulie, and who plays guitar and loves heavy metal, and we have Gravestone, who's kind of more of this. He loves to eat and party and mess around with people, and he's amphibious. He can go in and out of water, and then we have Goblin, who's our snake Ouija, and she looks a little bit like a Greta Gremlin, a little bit. She kills people with her tail and whatnot. And then we have Weed Wolf, who's actually a little person in an outfit, almost like a werewolf type helmet that he has on. And he's kind of our party animal. Actually, they're all party animals, really, but him in particular, he likes to party and run around and cause havoc. And those are kind of our main, 4 guys. So, and then we have Ganja Ghost, who kind of comes in, who's sort of this, sort of the crypt keeper type guy in the board. And he's kind of he's mostly he's not a CGI character, but he's sort of like this, he pops in here and there. And yeah, I mean, it's a wild movie. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of characters for a full moon movie. That's for sure. Usually you'd only get maybe 1-2 puppets, but we actually have 3, I'm sorry, 4, 3 puppets. The other Ouija is a little person in an outfit. So we have 4 actually. I think there were 6, and we had to actually end up cut them down to 4. Yeah, there was actually a lot more originally in the original drafts, and we actually cut them down to 4. I thought we were going to have to cut them down to even like 2, because these movies are made very quickly. A lot of people don't realize this movie didn't take us a month to shoot. This movie was shot in 5 days, 5.5 days, technically. So that is not a lot of time, and and on the crew sizes we have and everything, and having 4, and having creatures and 1 million people and celebrities, and we're out of town and yada yada yada. That's not a lot of time to do any movie, particularly this one. But anyway, we shot it in 5.5 days, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So
awesome. How was the cast?
Super happy with the casting. I couldn't be happier. That's one of the biggest jobs for the director is, really choosing the cast. But my main leads in the film, I'm just completely super happy with it, and I think the audience will really, really love these guys. They're young, they're talented. You haven't seen them. They're all very fresh, new talent, and I think it's something that people are going to really enjoy.
Awesome. So if you had your dream project to work on next, what would that be?
There's definitely a lot. I mean, nothing I can talk about right now, but there's definitely another movie happening. There's several actually. But as far as like a dream project, honestly, I like comedies. So I like comedies. I like westerns. The dream projects for me are always going to be more in the direction of comedy and westerns usually, and documentary. Those are kind of the general areas that I sticking with. Although there are horror projects coming, horror is generally a genre I like, but I do it differently. I don't like gore. So I tend to stay away from like movies that are like heavy on the sort of the gross out factor. Not too much. Like I'm not opposed to it, but I just don't like the extreme gore stuff. I stay away from that kind of stuff. I like movies like Weedjies. I like movies like Gremlins, like Critters, like the 80s horror pictures. Those are kind of my favorites. So yeah, more of those, I hope.
Awesome. My last question for you is, what are some of your favorite films in general?
My favorite films in general, we're going to have to start with Alfred Hitchcock. I would say Hitchcock is definitely one of my biggest influences, and not just Psycho. I mean, Psycho is a great movie, and I've actually analyzed. I had a whole class at Story Expo one time in LA in front of a group of screenwriters, all accomplished screenwriters and filmmakers, and I did this whole presentation breaking down just the parlor scene in Psycho for them. That scene in particular, I could do a whole class on. I mean, that movie is just really masterfully done. But Hitchcock in general, not just Psycho, but all of his pictures are film school for me. Certainly Roman Polanski's work and like Rosemary's Baby and all that stuff is masterful. Definitely my favorite though is going to always be westerns. It's going to have to be Sergio Leone's pictures. It's going to have to be like Once Upon a Time in the West. Just all the classics westerns, I think, for me are definitely my favorite and the most influential. And certainly Hitchcock, and certainly Kubrick. Certainly it's always classics with me. It's always classics. Like I can't think of something, like if you ask me like, hey, could you pick something in the last year or two that isn't played? I just can't. I just can't. I mean, maybe it's just me. I live in the past. I'm stuck in the 80s. I don't know. I'm stuck in the 70s, whatever. But those for me are the best films. Not only the best for me, it's not just the films. It's the TV shows too, from that era. Just incredibly well done, well directed, well written. I just love that era of cinema. For me is my favorite.
Awesome. I'm a huge Western fan also. My dad, again, loves Westerns, and I love the Sergio Leone stuff, but anything with Clint Eastwood, I'm a huge fan. I mean, I would actually say my favorite Western, with my two favorite Westerns with Eastwood, would be Pale Rider and High Plains Drifter. I like those ones in particular because they're like Western ghost stories. Like I actually, I went to school for screenwriting, and I have a published screenplay on Amazon that's an adaptation of Ambrose Bierce's The Stranger. I was watching basically those two movies like back to back when I was writing that script, and it's essentially like a 12-page like short that's a ghost western.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, no, that's great. No, those are great movies. Great movies, great genre, great actor, Clint. You can't go wrong with Westerns. And then I'm hoping that those, that people will, realize that those movies are just, ones that shouldn't get lost to history. They're just such wonderful filmmaking. I mean, cinematography though alone is like, everything you want to know about cinematography, I learned from Westerns, absolutely, without a doubt. And so, particularly Sergio Leone, I love his films, though. I love all of that stuff.
Awesome. Well, Danny, thank you so much for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me. As we know, the temperature was just right. I would love to have you come back anytime. Meet the Weedjies. It's coming out in October. Check it out. Perfect Halloween movie right there. Danny, thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you. And to clarify, it does get kind of confusing. The movie was originally called Halloweed Night, Meet the Weedjies, but after we had made the picture and so on, we decided that the title would be changed, and it has officially been changed to Weedjies, Halloweed Night. So the movie is called Weedjies, Halloweed Night, and there is a new poster being created. Probably come out within the next week or two. There'll be a trailer. There's a teaser right now for it, but and all that stuff will start rolling out in the coming months leading up to the release date. But I know it's a little confusing because we had announced it originally as like Halloween Night. It went out, press releases went out, Halloween Night, but we ended up having to change it because I've always felt that the movie should be called Weedjies. Like Ghoulies or Gremlins,
right.
It needed one word to describe what these guys are, and that's kind of what it was. And then they can only come out at Halloween, so it was Halloween Night for the first movie. Now, who knows? Now, will there be sequels? I'm sure there will be. I don't know how many. Will I be involved? I don't know, but I'm sure you'll see more of these movies in the future. So
awesome! I cannot wait. For one who loves the Ghoulies and everything, and just creature effects in general, the more just keep pumping them out. I want to see more of it.
Yeah, I hope. Hopefully, they can give me a little more time too. Maybe I can shoot like more than 5 days. But
right.
But no, they for what we did in 5.5 days. It's pretty cool. I mean, the location alone is in Vegas was amazing. It was a nice place to have these guys kind of come out and wreak a little havoc for a little bit. And again, I'm super happy with it. And I just can't wait for it to come out. I just need to finish it. So.
Awesome.
All right, man. Well, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it, and good luck with everything that you're doing with the show and everything. So
awesome. Thank you so much again. I would love to have you come on anytime.
All right, thanks, Sam. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good swimming with you in the fishbowl.
Same here.
All right, take care, man.
You too.